Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
The bustling cityscape of Elvira Prime sparkled like a constellation against the dark canvas of space. Captain Ethan Cade marveled at the city's neon glow from the cockpit of his ship as he prepared to dock. Elvira Prime was a beacon in the galactic cosmos, famed for its nightlife, diverse inhabitants, and the magnetic allure of its citizens, especially the Zanera species, who possessed an unmatched charisma. Ethan was on shore leave, and he'd chosen Elvira Prime as a break from his usual assignments. Known among his crew as a bold adventurer, he wasn't one to shy away from experiencing new cultures. He'd heard tales of the Zanera's mesmerizing beauty and their curiously playful culture. Stepping into their world felt like a challenge, a tantalizing mystery he was eager to unravel. As he disembarked, the alien atmosphere enveloped him. The city pulsed with life, sounds of laughter and music echoing through the streets. He walked through market stalls that boasted everything from exotic fruits to elaborate textiles shimmering with the iridescent colors. The air was thick with scents unfamiliar to his earth-trained senses, and yet it was all strangely inviting. Ethan's curiosity led him to the Amethyst Lounge, a well-known venue where various galactic species gathered to mingle. The establishment was opulent, with crystalline structures that gleamed under soft violet lights, casting a surreal glow over the attendees. The air hummed with conversation and laughter as beings from across the galaxy interacted, their voices blending into a symphony of alien tongues. As he settled at the bar, he noticed that his presence had caught a few intrigued glances. Humans were still somewhat of a novelty here. It wasn't long before he felt the magnetic pull of a gaze from across the room. There, seated with a composed elegance, was Lady Serena, a Zanera diplomat of high rank, known for her captivating beauty and sharp intellect. Her skin held a warm, ethereal glow, her eyes a deep amethyst that seemed to capture and reflect the dim light of the lounge. Her figure, adorned in delicate fabrics that accentuated her natural curves, was both graceful and powerful, embodying the Zanera's blend of allure and authority. She regarded him with a look that was both curious and challenging. "A human on Elvira Prime," she remarked, her voice carrying a musical quality that sent a subtle thrill through him. "We don't often see your kind here. What brings you so far into our part of the galaxy?" Ethan met her gaze with an easy smile, leaning casually against the bar. "Curiosity," he replied. "I've heard stories about this place. Thought I'd see for myself if the tales of Elvira Prime's beauty were true." A playful glint sparked in Serena's eyes. "Beauty, you say? I take it you've found something worth admiring already." He chuckled, appreciating her directness. "I'm certainly not disappointed," he responded, holding her gaze. With a graceful motion, Serena beckoned him to join her. "Then come, Captain. Perhaps I can help you decide if Elvira Prime lives up to your expectations." As he moved to sit beside her, he sensed that his night had taken an intriguing turn. This was no mere encounter. There was an unspoken dare in her invitation, a challenge that neither of them had fully voiced yet. And Ethan, ever the adventurer, was more than ready to accept. Ethan settled into the plush seat beside Serena, aware of the curious glances from other patrons. Though he kept his expression casual, he couldn't ignore the magnetic pull Serena seemed to exert, a presence that demanded attention without effort. The Zanera diplomat studied him, an amused smile playing on her lips. "So, Captain Cade, what is it about our world that lured you here? I imagine there are other places in the galaxy with more familiar comforts." Ethan shrugged, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Familiar comforts are overrated. I like the unknown, the challenge." Serena's smile widened, her amethyst eyes sparkling with intrigue. "A challenge, is it?" she replied, leaning in slightly. "Then I suppose you've heard about the Zanera's talents." Ethan raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "I may have heard a few stories." "Oh, and do you believe everything you hear, Captain?" He leaned forward, mirroring her intensity. "I believe what I see. So far, Elvira Prime seems to live up to the rumors." Serena laughed, a rich sound that seemed to draw the attention of those around them. "Humans," she murmured, shaking her head. So straightforward, so bold. We're not accustomed to that here. The Zanera appreciate subtleties. She leaned back, crossing her legs with a grace that seemed both natural and practiced, her gaze challenging him to look away. But you, Captain Cade, you seem different from the stories we hear of humans. Your confidence is intriguing. Ethan held her gaze, feeling the unspoken challenge in her words. Well, I like to think we're full of surprises, though it sounds like you might not be ready for all of them. Her eyes narrowed slightly, a playful challenge glinting in them. Oh, I think I can handle anything you might have to offer. The real question, Captain, is whether you can handle what I have to offer. The subtle intensity of her words sent a thrill through him. He felt a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and a hint of awe. Serena's confidence was a match to his own, yet there was a quiet strength behind her beauty that went beyond mere appearance. Their conversation continued, weaving through topics that touched on culture, diplomacy, and the allure of the unknown. Ethan found himself drawn to her mind as much as her presence. Serena's intelligence and wit matched her physical allure, making her presence all the more captivating. At one point, Serena shifted the conversation, her tone turning teasing once more. Tell me, Captain, do humans often find themselves captivated by the unknown? Ethan smiled. Only the bold ones. She tilted her head, her gaze assessing. Then you must be bolder than most. There was a pause then, with a subtle but unmistakable challenge in her eyes. She continued, Perhaps you'd be willing to prove it. Ethan's smile widened, his pulse quickening. Prove it how? Serena held his gaze, an almost imperceptible smile curving her lips. A test of sorts, she said smoothly, her tone as light as it was intense. To see if you can withstand the full effect of a Zanera's allure up close. Our people are known for an almost magnetic quality. Perhaps you're strong enough to resist it? The air between them thickened, a tension laced with curiosity and something more. Ethan felt a challenge woven through her words, a silent invitation to step into unknown territory. Ethan took a breath, holding her gaze. I accept, he said, his voice steady. Serena's eyes sparkled with satisfaction, though she remained composed. Good, she replied, her voice softening. But fair warning, Captain, few have endured it. She leaned in closer, the distance between them shrinking to a mere whisper, and placed her hand lightly on his arm. The touch sent a jolt through him, her warmth and the delicate brush of her fingers amplifying the tension between them. He felt an unfamiliar pull, a sensation that was both thrilling and grounding, as if her presence was wrapping around him in ways that defied words. Touch them, I dare you, she murmured, the words barely audible. Think you can handle these magnificent curves? Her challenge was laced with humor, but the underlying intensity was unmistakable. Ethan's heart raced, but he managed a calm smile. I'll take my chances. Their connection seemed to deepen with each second, their shared energy becoming almost palpable. Serena's proximity felt electric, as though she was drawing him into her world one heartbeat at a time. As they sat there, Ethan realized this was no ordinary attraction. It was a powerful, mutual intrigue that both of them were willing to explore. He felt the weight of her dare settle on him like a mantle, and for the first time in his life, he wondered if he was truly ready to handle what he had stepped into. The private lounge was a world unto itself, a place where even the vibrant sounds and colors of Elvira Prime faded into the background. The walls, adorned with intricate, crystalline patterns, glowed softly, casting gentle shadows. Serena led Ethan through a quiet, secluded corridor, her steps light and graceful, while he followed, feeling the weight of anticipation settle over him. When they entered the room, Serena turned to him, her expression softened, yet still carrying that familiar glint of playful challenge. She gestured for him to sit, then settled across from him, her gaze never wavering. So, Captain Cade, she began, her voice like silk, are you truly ready to experience what a Zanera can offer? Ethan leaned back, keeping his gaze steady on her. I'm ready if you are. She chuckled, the sound low and inviting, as she leaned forward just enough for him to feel her presence more acutely. Her fingers traced idle patterns along the arm of her chair, and he sensed the measured elegance in her every movement. It was as if each small gesture was designed to weave a spell around him, drawing him deeper into her orbit. In Zanera culture, she explained, beauty is more than physical. It's a connection to who we are, a symbol of our inner strength and the energy we carry. We believe that true allure lies in allowing others to truly see, what we are capable of. Ethan nodded, captivated. There was an earnestness in her words that went beyond flirtation. He sensed a kind of vulnerability in her, a glimpse into something deeply personal. Serena's beauty wasn't just a superficial charm. It was an extension of her identity, her strength, and her pride. "And so you use that allure," he replied, his tone respectful, "as a way to connect, to express your power?" She smiled, her eyes softening slightly. "Exactly. It's why I wanted to test you, Captain. Not everyone can appreciate it. Most see only the surface and miss the deeper meaning. But you," she paused, studying him intently, "I think you understand." He held her gaze, nodding. "I get it. We humans have our own ways of showing strength, but I respect what your people have built." Her eyes glinted with something like approval. "Then perhaps you'll appreciate this." She reached out, placing her hand gently on his arm again, but this time, the sensation was different, deeper, more intense. He felt her presence enveloping him, a warmth and energy that was both calming and exhilarating. It was as if her very essence was reaching out to him, drawing him in with a force that felt almost otherworldly. "In Zanera culture," she murmured, "a touch is an invitation, a way to say, 'I see you, and I trust you to see me.' But it is also a dare, Captain, a challenge. Do you accept it?" Ethan's pulse quickened, his gaze locked on hers. "I accept." Her smile deepened, and she shifted closer, closing the small distance between them. Her hand moved up, tracing the line of his jaw. Her touch as light as a whisper, yet sending a jolt through him. He couldn't deny the pull she had over him, but there was more than attraction here. It was a shared understanding, an acceptance of the challenge she offered. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Serena's fingers lingered along his jaw, her gaze intense and searching, as if she was looking for something hidden beneath the surface. He held her gaze, feeling an almost magnetic force between them. Finally, she leaned even closer, her lips mere inches from his ear. "Then prove it," she whispered. "Show me that humans can stand with the Zanera." Without a word, he reached out, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath his touch. She met his gaze, her own breath catching as she moved even closer, the tension between them growing palpable. In that charged silence, Ethan realized that this was more than a simple test of attraction. It was a merging of cultures, a symbol of trust and understanding. And in that moment, he understood that the real challenge Serena posed wasn't just to endure her allure. It was to see beyond it, to recognize her as she truly was. Her hand moved to his, interlacing her fingers with his own, and he felt a wave of calm settle over him, mingling with the thrill of the moment. Their connection transcended mere physicality. It was a bond forged in mutual respect, an unspoken pact between two souls from different worlds. They sat in silence, their hands entwined, sharing a moment of understanding that needed no words. And in that quiet, Ethan felt himself falling, not just for Serena's beauty, but for the strength and wisdom she carried within her. The silence that followed their shared touch held a weight of its own, thick with unspoken words and emotions that neither of them was quite ready to voice. Serena leaned back slightly, though her gaze remained on Ethan, a softness in her eyes that hinted at something unguarded. "Tell me, Captain," she began, her voice a touch quieter now. "What do humans fear?" The question surprised him. He'd expected another playful remark, something flirtatious or lighthearted, but there was sincerity in her question that made him pause. Ethan considered her words carefully. "We fear the unknown," he admitted, "but sometimes that's what drives us." The curiosity, the need to face what we don't understand. It's what pushes us forward. She nodded thoughtfully, her expression contemplative. Curiosity. That's something we share, then. There was a pause, and then she spoke again, her words barely above a whisper. I've always been fascinated by humans. Your resilience, your ability to adapt. It's admirable. And what about you? Ethan asked, his tone gentle. What do you fear? Serena hesitated, her gaze drifting away for the first time since their conversation began. I fear isolation, she said softly. In Zanera society, we're expected to be perfect, to embody beauty and strength. But sometimes, she trailed off, her eyes distant. Sometimes I wonder if anyone truly sees me beyond the image. Ethan's heart tightened at her words. In that moment, he realized that beneath Serena's confidence and allure lay a deep vulnerability, a yearning to be understood, not just admired. I see you, he replied quietly, his words carrying a sincerity that surprised even him. Not just the diplomat or the beauty, but the person behind it all. Her gaze snapped back to his, and he could see the faintest shimmer in her eyes. She reached out again, her fingers tracing along the back of his hand. The touch was light, but it held a depth that transcended words. You're different from the others, Ethan, she murmured, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and relief. You don't look at me like an object. You see me as an equal. He nodded, his gaze never leaving hers. Because that's what you are, Serena. More than that, even. For a moment, they sat in silence, letting the weight of their connection settle between them. The room felt warmer, the air charged with a blend of tension and trust. Show me more, she whispered, her voice carrying a vulnerability that made his heart ache. Show me what it's like to be seen. Ethan's hand moved up, his fingers brushing against her cheek, feeling the warmth of her skin. She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch, and he could see the tension melt away from her face. He leaned closer, their breaths mingling, and for a moment, the world around them disappeared. It was just the two of them, lost in each other's presence, finding solace in the shared silence. Their lips met in a gentle, lingering kiss, a soft merging of souls that spoke of understanding, of a bond that went beyond the physical. Her arms wrapped around him, pulling him closer, and he felt the walls between them crumble, replaced by a sense of belonging he hadn't anticipated. The kiss deepened, their connection growing stronger with each passing second. It was a dance of trust, of mutual surrender, a silent acknowledgement that they were two beings who had found something precious in each other. When they finally pulled back, their foreheads rested against each other, their breaths mingling in the quiet. I didn't expect this, Serena whispered, a faint smile on her lips. I didn't expect to find someone who understands. Ethan smiled softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. Neither did I. They sat there, wrapped in each other's embrace, finding comfort in the quiet of the moment. For the first time, Serena felt seen, truly seen, and Ethan realized that he had found something worth cherishing in this alien world, a connection that defied boundaries and bridged the vastness of space. As dawn approached, a subtle glow crept through the crystalline walls, casting soft hues around the room where Ethan and Serena sat, their silence as comfortable as it was profound. They hadn't moved from their quiet embrace, each lost in the newfound connection they had forged in the night's unfolding moments. Serena stirred, glancing toward the faint morning light. Her hand was still entwined with Ethan's, a reminder of the shared vulnerability that had brought them here. She sighed, a sound that carried both contentment and an underlying tension, one she could no longer ignore. Our worlds don't often come together like this, she murmured, almost to herself, her gaze distant. The Zanera don't usually see connections beyond our own kind. Ethan tightened his grip on her hand, his voice low. But you're not just any Zanera, and I'm not just any human. Her eyes softened, a touch of humor mixed with sadness. No, you certainly aren't, Captain. You've given me something rare, something precious. But what happens now? The question lingered in the air, unanswerable. Ethan felt the weight of reality pressing in, the complications that their connection might bring. He hadn't thought this far ahead. He had been captivated by the moment, by the discovery of something unique and real. But now, in the light of dawn, he realized that they were two beings from different worlds, both bound by their own responsibilities. "Does it have to be complicated?" he asked softly. "Can't we just let this be what it is?" Serena smiled, a wistful look in her eyes. "Perhaps if we were only ourselves. But I'm not just Serena. I am a representative of my people, a symbol of our culture. To them, I must be flawless, unattainable. They wouldn't understand this." He could feel her hesitation, the sense of duty that bound her to her role, and he respected it. Yet he couldn't deny the growing ache at the thought of leaving her behind. "Then maybe it's our secret," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just something between us." Her hand tightened around his, and for a moment, he thought she might agree. But the look in her eyes told him otherwise. "Secrets can be dangerous, Ethan, and we both have duties that go beyond ourselves. I cannot risk everything, not even for—" Her voice trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. They sat in silence, the reality settling between them. Serena took a breath, her expression resolute, yet tinged with sadness. "You've shown me something beautiful, something I'll carry with me. But for now, I must remain as I am, bound to my people, my responsibilities." Ethan nodded, understanding the unspoken farewell in her words. "I won't forget you, Serena. And if our paths cross again—" She offered a sad smile, reaching up to touch his cheek, a gesture that felt as tender as it was final. "Then perhaps the stars will align in our favor." They shared one last kiss, a gentle, lingering embrace that held the weight of everything they couldn't say. And then, as dawn fully broke, Serena stood, a shadow of regret in her eyes as she slowly turned to leave. Ethan watched her go, feeling a bittersweet mix of gratitude and loss. She had been more than just a fleeting encounter. She had shown him a depth of connection he hadn't thought possible in the vast galaxy. And though their paths would diverge, he knew he would carry her memory, her essence, with him wherever he went. As he sat alone, the first light of day streaming into the room, Ethan felt a profound change within himself, a sense of purpose, of clarity. He had glimpsed something extraordinary in Serena, something that would forever remind him of the beauty and mystery that lay in the unknown. He rose, knowing that his journey was far from over. The universe was vast, filled with countless worlds, and somewhere among them, he believed that he and Serena might find their way back to each other. Until then, he would live as he always had, boldly, fearlessly, with a heart open to the possibilities of what lay beyond. The departure from Levira Prime left Ethan with a strange emptiness, a quiet ache that he couldn't shake. As he returned to his ship and prepared for the journey back, he found himself lost in thought, the memories of Serena lingering like the last notes of a beautiful melody. He replayed their final moments together, her quiet strength and the vulnerability she'd shared with him. It was rare in his life as a pilot and adventurer to find someone who resonated with him on that level, especially across the vast cultural divides that separated their worlds. For so long, he had moved from place to place, mission to mission, without giving much thought to the connections he left behind. But now something was different. As he settled into the cockpit, he felt a shift in himself, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. He knew that he couldn't simply go back to his old life, hopping between star systems, searching for thrills without direction. His time with Serena had awakened something deeper, a desire to truly understand the galaxy, not just skim across its surface. "She saw me," he murmured to himself, the realization both grounding and inspiring. "And I saw her." With a deep breath, Ethan set the ship's coordinates, not for Earth, but for the outer colonies where human and alien alliances were being forged and tested. He knew that the path ahead wouldn't be easy. Intergalactic relations were fraught with misunderstandings and conflicts. Yet, he felt compelled to bridge those gaps, to bring a human touch to the distant reaches of the galaxy. "Captain," the ship's AI chimed, breaking his thoughts. "You've set a course for the Andromeda frontier." That region is known for its political volatility and unrest. Ethan smiled, feeling a spark of anticipation. Exactly where I need to be. He wanted to be more than just a spectator in the galaxy. He wanted to be a part of something meaningful, to carry the understanding he'd found with Serena to others who might need it, alien and human alike. His memories of her became a guiding light, a reminder of the beauty and connections that crossed borders and transcended cultures. As the stars streaked past his ship, he allowed himself one last glance back toward Levira Prime, whispering a silent farewell. He knew that Serena would continue on her path, dedicated to her people, her duties, and the unbreakable resolve she carried within her. But in the vastness of the cosmos, he held onto a quiet hope that one day their paths might cross again. Until then, he whispered, I'll carry what you taught me. The ship surged forward, and Ethan felt a sense of peace, of purpose, filling the space where his longing had been. He was no longer simply a wanderer. He was a bridge, a connection between worlds, guided by the memory of a night that had changed him forever. And with that, he ventured into the stars, ready to face whatever awaited him, his heart open to the beauty and challenges that lay in the vast unknown.